Welcome back to Canard Boulevard. My name is Scott. Today we're going to be, well, actually tonight, I'm going to be going out and regaining my night currency. I expired just a few days ago, so it's time to go out and do it again. If you don't know what night currency is, in order to carry passengers at night, you have to have made 3 full stop landings within the last 90 days, and it's been about 94 days for me. I don't actually fly at night a whole lot. I did this a lot when I was in my 20s, but I'm a little older and wiser now, and I don't tend to fly a lot at night in my single-engine airplane. But if I do end up where I have to be able to fly at night, particularly with a passenger, I want to have that option in my back pocket, and in order to do so, I have to be night current. So we're going to go up tonight, and we're going to fly up over to Lorain County. I'm going to do a practice ILS into there because at nighttime I tend to, even if I'm not IFR, I like to do an approach in because then I know I'm going to have the obstacle clearances and all the towers and things that you can't see because it's dark. You know you're not going to hit them because you're doing an instrument approach. Now I'm not going to actually file and do an actual real instrument approach as an IFR flight plan, but I am going to perform the approach as if I were. So let's get ready to head out on a night currency flight.
Traffic, experimental codes, unit number 797, Delta Lima departing 27.
Now, I did make the mistake of having the canopy slightly open as I was taxiing because it was a little bit warm, and as a result I've got some visitors inside in the form of a couple very large moths who very much don't want to be now inside my cockpit. And I don't want them to be a distraction later on, so I spend a minute here capturing and killing them. And now that I think about it, as I'm recording this after the fact, the next day, I'm going to have to go back in the airplane and find wherever I flicked those things and clean them up. Now, I have prepared for the approach already. I've got the approach loaded into the GPS. I've got my altitude bugged and our heading bugged, so I can bring it the autopilot fairly soon after I take off.
2250, everything's in the green. And away we go. Airspeed's alive, and we are at 40, 45, there's 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, and we're up. And gear up. Pitch for VX.
Now you do need 3 takeoffs and landings at night, which is defined by the FAA as I think it's half hour after civil twilight, which is exactly 5 minutes ago in terms of when I am flying here. So even though there is a little bit of sun showing on the west here, you can see just a little bit remnants of that sunset. It is now nighttime as defined by the FAA. So here I'm climbing out, and I'm going to climb out right to pattern altitude right away before I make any turns, just because I don't know what's below me. Well, I do, but I can't see it, so I don't trust it. So I'm just going to climb straight out because I know straight out there are no obstructions. In fact, the runway 9er instrument approach is the exact opposite direction I'm doing here, so I know it's clear of obstacles.
Good night, traffic, experimental cozy, November 797, Delta Lima departing to the west.
At Medina here, we are underneath the Cleveland class Bravo shelf, which starts at 4,000 feet. So I'm going to climb up to 3,500 feet, make sure I stay underneath it. Then we'll give Cleveland a call and see if they will vector us over to do the ILS at Lorain. Hopefully they're not too busy. They shouldn't be this time of night. And we'll give them a call. That's my 1,000-foot warning. Let me know I have 1,000 feet left in the climb, which means at this point we're at 2,500 feet, well above pattern altitude. We'll continue the climb.
Cleveland approach, experimental cozy, November 797, Delta Lima.
November 797, Delta Lima, Cleveland.
797, Delta Lima, 3,500 just off of Medina. I would like to go over to Lorain and shoot practice ILS 7.
I'll do the best I can. What's that aircraft say?
Type is a cozy, Charlie Oscar Zulu Yankee, and we can just take vectors. It'll be a full stop into Lorain.
Delta Lima, 4606.
4606, 7 Delta Lima.
And at this point, I realize I have a problem. The buttons to type in the squawk code on my transponder, I can't see them. They're not lit up. They're supposed to be lit up. I don't fly enough at nighttime, and the only time I've done night flying in this airplane, I didn't actually call up ATC and talk to them, so I've never actually typed in a squawk code in the dark in this airplane, and I can't do it. So I get my flashlight out so that I can see the buttons and type in my squawk code. So this is going on my squawk list. I need to adjust the button lights on my transponder so that I can actually see them at night. That's and actually I think I'll adjust the brightness of the transponder screen as well, because it's a little bit dimmer than all the rest of the instruments.
7 Delta Lima, radar contact, position out to get 3,500 for now, proceed direct NULA. Actually, you said you want a vector for the ILS 7, correct?
7 Delta Lima, affirmative.
7 Delta Lima, roger, flighting as 300, vector ILS runway 7, maintain VFR. Clear.
300, 7 Delta Lima.
500.
He was about to give me a full approach, which normally you would do for a practice approach, but I'm not actually practicing an ILS approach. I'm just using it for clearance in this nighttime approach.
7 Delta Lima, flighting 300, VFR at or below 3,500, cleared to the Bravo airspace.
7 Delta Lima, 3,500 and 300 cleared to the Bravo, at or below 3,500.
Being vectored around actually makes my life easy. I don't actually have to do anything except follow his instructions.
7 Delta Lima, turn right, heading 350.
Right to 350, 7 Delta Lima.
Now I'm going to check the AWAS at Lorraine, not because I'm concerned about weather, but just to make sure that there's no runway closures or any other things that I didn't know about that weren't noted or that might be on the AWAS that I need to know about.
17 Celsius, dew point 13 Celsius.
So as I'm getting closer to Lorraine, I see another airplane on ADS-B that is within a couple hundred feet of my altitude, and it looks like he's also going to Lorraine. I think I need to do something about him, and then...
Cozy 7 Delta Lima, traffic 10 to 11 o'clock, 7 miles, south-southeast, altitude 3,000.
7 Delta Lima has traffic.
7 Delta Lima, right?
I have to say, it is way, way easier finding traffic at nighttime than in the daytime. All you got to look for is that flashing light and the green or red lights and then maybe the white light on the tail, but it's so easy to pick out airplanes at nighttime.
Cozy 7 Delta Lima, right, heading 360.
360, 7 Delta Lima.
So he is trying to vector me away from that traffic, but that's not going to work because we're both going to the same place and we're going to end up conflicting. So as a result, I realize at this point I'm not going to be able to make this approach because this guy is in the way, and the controller realizes it as well.
7 Delta Lima, looks like that traffic's doing the same thing you'd like to do, like the vector back around, or are you going to make same visual from that traffic?
Let's vector it back around. Yeah, you're right. He's doing the same thing.
7 Delta Lima, roger, turn right 270 degrees, right heading 270.
Right 270 for 7 Delta Lima.
7 Delta Lima, it's a perfect turn. Just keep that turn coming right around all the way to a 340, heading 340, then put down the base again.
Alright, right to 340, 7 Delta Lima.
As you make the turn around, that traffic will be off your right wing at about 2 miles on the final, about 7 miles out.
7 Delta Lima.
7 Delta Lima, turn right, heading 050, intercept the localizer.
050, intercept the localizer, 7 Delta Lima.
Delta Lima, 4 miles from Rolls, maintain VFR, clear ILS 27 approach, Lorraine County.
7 Delta Lima, and we'll go ahead and cancel with you, thanks.
7 Delta Lima, roger, radar service terminator, free train page, squawk over, the traffic just over Rolls right now, 2,500.
Traffic in sight, 7 Delta Lima, squawk VFR, thanks.
And once again, use my flashlight to switch my transponder back to VFR squawk. I'm now on the localizer and tracking inbound, waiting for the glide slope to come in.
Lorraine traffic, experimental Cozy's November 797 Delta Lima is 3 mile final for runway 7, full stop, Lorraine.
That was a mistake. Actually, it was the distance to the next waypoint that was 3 miles. I was actually 5 mile final. That was my error. I didn't catch it until later, though.
Lorraine County Traffic Warrior 56786 is on that 3 mile final. Delta Lima, you're behind me for 07 Lorraine.
7 Delta Lima has a traffic in sight.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I was him and I had somebody who was on the approach calling final at the same distance as I was at night, I would be a little nervous about that as well. Sorry about that, guy.
Lorraine County Traffic Warrior 56786, clear of 07 Lorraine.
$500.
Which is seatbelts.
Metabel traffic, 152 Victor departing the area to the south, Metabel traffic.
Lorraine has a nice long 5,000 foot long runway, so I don't bother burning up my brakes on this landing. I just taxi all the way down to the end of the runway, turn around, and taxi back. Because I'm going to be doing a couple landings, I don't want to get my brakes up too hot. And then I tried turning out my taxi light, landing light, just to see how it looks taxiing without it.
Lorraine County Traffic, experimental Cozy, November 797 Delta Lima, departing runway 7.
I am a little more careful with my pre-takeoff checks here. You can't just look at things just to check that they are okay, so I tend to feel with my hand each of the different controls just to make sure everything is exactly how I expect it to be.
Alright, engine instruments in the green. Airspeed's alive. There's 40. 55, 60, 65, there's 70 and rotate. Gear up. DX, gear coming up.
Now normally on a day VFR flight, if I was staying in the pattern doing pattern work like this, I'd climb to maybe 600 feet before turning crosswind, basically because I want to try to stay within gliding distance of the airport if at all possible. However, tonight, it's dark. I don't see any obstacles on the ground because it's dark, so I'm going to climb up. I'm almost at pattern altitude, so I'm going to start my turn on crosswind probably 850 feet. So maybe 150 feet below pattern altitude, and you'll hear my alert come up to let me know I've got 200 feet to go right here. That lets me know I'm almost at pattern altitude because I did bug the pattern altitude, and now you can see I'm starting my crosswind turn to stay into the pattern. I realized after I got down from this flight that I had not looked around and looked at the city at night or looked at lights or anything while I was up because I was busy. I was trying to make sure I didn't hit anything or fly into the ground or whatnot. It's different when you're doing a cross country at night. You can kind of look around, but for this kind of work, I was busy.
Lorraine County Traffic, experimental Cozy, November 797 Delta Lima, left downwind runway 7. Going to be landing full stop, Lorraine County. Midfield, gear down.
Normally, when flying a VFR pattern in my plane in the daytime, I will turn base fairly close in. Again, I want to be able to glide to the airport if anything bad were to happen to my engine. However, I am going to extend my downwind just a little bit on this approach just because I want a little bit extra time to make sure that I have a nice stabilized approach with good speeds and good glide slope. This is not going to be an ILS approach. This is a pure visual approach. I'm going to be judging my approach angle and speeds and so on just by how the runway environment looks, and of course using the PAPI lights on the left side of the runway to adjust my glide slope angle.
Lorraine County Traffic, experimental Cozy, 797 Delta Lima, left base 07, Lorraine, full stop. Brake down, gear is down. Loose pump gas switches, seat belts.
And as I usually do, I don't really flatten out my base to final turn. I kind of make a continuous curve all the way from downwind onto final. Just a force of habit. Not that you really have a stall spin problem with the Cozy, with the Canard, but I do it anyway.
Alright, traffic experimental Cozy 797 Delta Lima, final 07, full stop. Alright.
And then now you can see the Rabbit and the approach lighting system coming into view. And just to the left of that, you can see the airport beacon flashing, alternating between white and green. And to the left of the runway, you see the PAPI, the 4 lights that
500.
give you an idea of where you should be on the glide slope. At this point, I realize I'm high, so I am pulling all the power out and getting some sink in because I did come in a little bit high. I stayed high on base when I should have been descending some. And now I've let it sink a little bit too much, and I've got 3 red lights on the PAPI, so I add some power in just to arrest that sink. Now I really want to try and get a nice low speed landing here. I'm going to come in and I'm going to touch down at just about 70 knots, stall speed 63. And for that reason I've got my feet on both rudders, so both rudders are pushed out acting as speed brakes, but then I make a mistake because I'm trying to concentrate on making a good landing. I forget to pull my feet off the rudders and land with the brakes on.
That was not so good.
Not on hard enough to flat spot the tires or anything, but enough that it puts the nose wheel down on the ground with a little bit of aggression, and it's not a pretty landing as a result. So let's taxi around and take off and head for home.
Clearing County traffic experimental Cozy November 797 Delta Lima departing 07. Alright, everything in the green. Here's alive. Here's 40. Here's 50. And 60. 5 and 70, and let's rotate. Positive rate, gear up.
And once again, I'll climb out straight ahead until I've got a pretty decent altitude, and then I'm going to turn south and just kind of skirt around the outside of the inner ring of the Class Bravo, and I'm going to stay underneath the outer ring. I'm going to bother with flight following just for this very, very short trip back to Medina. Flying into Medina, it is kind of a black hole. It's out in the middle of the country. There's nothing around it, not much way in the way of lights. There are some towers, some of which are unlit, so absolutely I am going to use an instrument approach to get in here. We are going to be landing on runway 9, so we're going to use the RNAV 9. The MSA for 25 nautical miles is 3,100 feet. I'm at 3,400, so that's fine. I'm going to head for a full approach. We're going to go into Hagad, then hit Festo, turn inbound, and then over the final approach fix of Jetra, and then from then I'll likely just do a visual approach. I am going to stick to the altitudes just to make sure that I have proper obstacle clearance.
Medina traffic experimental Cozy November 797 Delta Lima 4 mile final runway 9. Full stop, Medina. 2300 for 17.
So I'm just calling out my altitudes as I hit each 100 feet just to remind me that, hey, 1700 is my MDA. That's where my decision point is. Not that I'm doing an approach, but just to force a habit.
2100 for 17. $2,000 for 17.
And at this point, I shut off the autopilot and I'm flying the remainder of this approach by hand.
Speed brake out.
And you'll notice that there are a couple of runway lights not working on this one, and our VASIs are out.
Speed brake is out.
I would really, really appreciate if the airport would get those VASIs fixed, because it really helps on black hole approaches such as this one.
500.
Whoa, what the hell was that? Let me back up and play that last second in slow motion. You can see right here, there's something very bright moving right next to me, right below me. I've looked at this a few times, and it's definitely something that's being lit up by my landing light, but it's too big to be a bug, so I'm thinking it's either a bird that's flying at night or maybe a bat. I don't know if bats fly around at 500 feet, but judging by the absolute coating of bugs that I had all over my plane after I landed, I'm suspecting it's either a very large bug or that was close, or a bat eating those bugs.
There's a good speed. Attitude looks right. Roll right of course.
This one is a little challenging because there is no VASI here. Your approach angle is done entirely by perspective of what the runway environment looks like at night.
Runway made. Power out.
So it does take a little bit of practice to be able to land like this in the dark using just only the runway lights to get your attitude and speeds and everything correct. Not a great landing. I didn't arrest my descent just quite enough before touchdown there, so it was a little more firm than I would have liked, but not too bad. I didn't float, and speeds and everything seemed to be right on.
That wasn't pretty, but good job.
And the reason for that is because I was a little bit high on short final there, so I was descending down because I didn't want to use up too much runway, and then because I had increased my sync rate, I didn't arrest it properly before I touched down. I knew that right away as soon as I did that, but, you know, just need some more practice.
County traffic, experimental cozy, November 797, Delta Lima, clear of runway 9er.
And that's it. That's my night currency done for another 3 months. I want to appreciate you coming along on the little ride with me. I have a little bit of work to do on this. Obviously, if I'm only doing this once every 3 months, I'm not quite as proficient as I should be. As you can tell, night landings could use some improvement. That said, like I mentioned, I don't really fly at night, so I use this just as a legal backup, just in case I'm ever flying somewhere I need to divert, or for whatever reason I may need to land at night sometime. I just want to make sure that I am current in case I do have passengers. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, corrections, please leave in the comments section below. If you like this video, click like on it. And I see that tens of thousands of people are watching my videos now. I get a lot of views, but it also tells me that only 18% of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to get notified when I post one of these videos, I would really, really appreciate it if you would click subscribe now to my channel. That really helps me out more than you can imagine. Just take 5 seconds right now and click on that subscribe button. Really helps me out. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.